This daf Yerushalmi Pesachim. The article is additional daf Nundal. The fourth line down. Chatei menabasa tzei boat. And in the Vilna, that is on daf Menvava and Beis, also fourth line down. Chatei menabasa. And yesterday we had in the Mishnah, of course, in the Gemara, Rabbi Yosef Shita says that no says krovas b'nei tocho. You put the legs and the intestines inside the Korban Pesach to roast. And the Gemara brought down two reasons for. One is that Kerech Ave Rabbi Yosef, and the other is the pasuk Rosh al Krov al Kirbo. And the problem was, of course, that the blood is not going to flow out properly if you put from the crime kirbai, put them inside the Korban Pesach. So the question is, why is this acceptable? And first reason was because it's like a thick thigh. That just like a thick thigh, the parts of the fire further from the fire. Further inside, their blood is absorbed by the fire, and that's okay by roasting. So to here, it's okay. That's just like a thick piece of meat now, and no different than if it was still attached to the animal on the outside. And the second reason is no, could be that here it is an issue, but still there's a custom. And so it's either telling us that, well, we can rely on that in this case the blood will come out, or we're not concerned about blood in this case. We gave one afkamina yesterday between these two reasons, whereby Kedisha Chulin, if you're going to say that it's the Yerach Aveh, so that applies to any animal, not just Korban Pesach. Say it's a special case, it could be only applies to Korban Pesach, but a normal animal, you can't roast that way. Now we're going to give another afkamina. Chatan and a basar, if you cut a piece of meat off the Korban Pesach, which is not the Roshan, the Kerav crime. And you put it inside. So if you're going to say, we're going to say that it's like a thick thigh. So then, and here we don't change the kosher and parcel like we did yesterday, then it's kosher because it's like a thick thigh. What difference to make which piece of meat is on the inside? Then it's only those parts of the animal which you put inside, not any other part of the animal, and therefore it's going to be possible. Now, the next in the next part of the Gemara, which is another nafkamina, there are a lot of different girsos. But so we'll go through it and explain. So it's here it says bechelev, but that's everywhere. It's a mistake. The Korban changed it to belav, the Pnei Moshe changed it to bechevel, and then the Orz Harua it's changed to behevel, which is the same thing as bechevel, and it's the same as lav. What we're talking about is you have a dry pot. And you put the Korban Pesach inside the Kerav crime inside the dry pot. Okay, you didn't put it inside the Korban Pesach itself. Put it inside a dry pot. So now, what's the story? Is that okay? Is that not okay? So the flame is on the outside of the pot. There's no moisture inside. You can say it's boiling. It's just the heat. So if you're going to say it's like a thick thigh now. So the Korban does not change kosher apostle here. The Reb Chaim does not change kosher apostle. Pnei Moshe does change kosher apostle, and or Zarua, so his Rishon, he does change the kosher apostle as well. So we're going to learn like the Pnei Moshe and the or Zarua. So in Tema Kerech of Rabbi Yosef, you're going to say, well, it's like the thickness of a thigh, meaning that the fire can penetrate a barrier and make sure that the blood comes out. So therefore, the fact that the fire is outside the pot doesn't bother us, and therefore, it's fine. Putting that in putting the Kerav crime in a dry pot is the same thing they put them inside the Korban Pesach. So and it's kosher. In Tema Kerech of there, basically kosher. In Tema Krodesh, we say it's a special case of kosher. It only applies to Rosho al Kirbo al Krov in the Korban Pesach itself. So in Tema Krodesh, Rosho al Kirbo Krov al Kirbo, possible, and you can't replicate that in a dry pot. It only is permitted inside the Korban Pesach itself. That's if there's a kosov. So it says, wait a minute, how can this work? Look in time tzliesh, look tzliktera. Tzliesh means it has to be directly over the fire, not inside a pot. How's it going to work? It's a flaw in the tzliah, right? There's not the type of roasting Torah demanded. So says the Gemara, no. It's the problem of a pot is only when it actually touches the pot. Now it's also a problem when there's going to be more liquid in the pot, obviously, because that's cooking. But the problem would be also when it touches the pot, and that's would be similar to the skewer which we had yesterday, because then it's when it's touching the pot, so then it's really boiling it. But if it's just in the airspace, so then that would not be a problem with Sliesh. Okay, so the fact that there's the fires on the outside, that doesn't bother us. Okay, so that's not so that's why the nafkamina is still nafkamina. Again, do I say that the fire is going to be effective even though there's a barrier, or the fire is not effective, only effective through the barrier of the body of Korban Pesach, but Sliesh, that's not a problem. That's the barrier. It's not an impediment to being considered Sliesh. So Gemara says, Hada, what we're about to learn. Not what we just learned, we're about to learn. Hadamra Kaidarish. We're about to learn will teach us that it is, as Korban says, Ma'od of Samach, Korban says, Krabanan, Muchad Kaidarish. We're going to see it means, indicates that it's specifically because of Irish or Shalkir Bovakrav. Now we seem to have a general machlekes in how he darshan the word al. So akomodim ba'alav, when it says alav, shu samuch. The Korban brings down akomodim hechad d'chsiv alav shebeso samuch. It means adjacent. Kmo v'alav matem Menashe. Adjacent was the tribe of Menashe. Mamafakin, where's the machlekes be'al? It doesn't say alav, it says al. I guess alav means on. It means closer. Al means just on. It's not as connected. So we have a machlokas here about this case here, famous sefer here. We have here there's lechem aponim, and you have the levona, which is supposed to be al hamareches. Al. So the question is, this al, what is it? Does it mean al literally on, just like a love? I mean on top of the breads, which are aruch, is the mareches, the breads arranged. It can mean also adjacent, down here below, next to it. And here it's on the table itself. And it's machlokes Abishol and Rabbanim, which we're about to see. I can put this down somewhere. So Abishol al marecha, it says al marecha. It seems that it's supposed to be mareches. Al marecha, samuch marecha. It can be adjacent to Maracha, like the picture was on the table next to them. Rabbanan tell me, al Maracha, no, al Gagash Maracha. It's got to be put on the bread itself, on the top of the bread, the top of each of the one container, top of each one of the the piles of 6 breads. So I said Abishol Rabbi Akiva. So Abishol is Rabbi Akiva in our Mishnah who says that the al can be besamuch, and therefore Kirbo Krov don't have to be inside the Korban Pesach. They can be, as the Merkiva said, Tol Chutzalo. You put it outside. Next to it. Whereas the Rabbi Yitzchak, who says that Al has to be mamish on top, here, so when it says Al Rukrav al Kirbo, it's got to be mamish inside. So we see that Rabbi Yossi derives this halacha from the pasuk, and that's evidently that's a special. We assume that also over here the aspect that we're not concerned with the blood is also because he takes the Gzeres to that extent and says we're not concerned with the fact that potentially there might be blood absorbed, again either because we're assuming it'll come out through the base of Shechita properly, or because that's the Gzeres. But we see that he takes the psukim very literally. Rabbi says, I feel also shnei stories are boisrei. Even if you put just only 12 lechem upon. What if you put a 14th one? They put out 14, and the 7th one on each of these marachos, and you put the vona on top of that 14th one, which is superfluous. Top of the 7th one on each side, it's superfluous, right? And it should be a hefsek. He says it's not a hefsek in terms of al. That's still considered al. It might be a problem for other reasons, but that's not a problem for al. I feel also shnei stories are boisrei 7-7. Einon, you see the top ones if they're not there. V'atonos kasheros, and the Korban says not just that they're kosher, but I feel kiyoy levona zakal lehan put it on top of the last challah kosher. Mashal says mavstikos ben marechas ben lavona ain't a place lo boinan al b'stomach don't al mamish adjacent. Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Abba, he's saying they both them. No, sorry. Rabbi Yosef ben Shem Yochanan said Rabbi v'Abba Shol, both Rabbi and Abba Shol. So he disagrees. He says Rebbe did not say on top of that chal. That chal would be hefsek. That superfluous chal would be hefsek. He says that Rebbe holds if you put 14 chalas there, shouldn't have done it, but the levona is not going on top of the 7th chala on each one. It actually goes in the middle of the table, and like Rabbi Meir. And the Rabbi Meir gives the dimensions of the lechem aponim vis-a-vis the shulchan that leaves room in the middle for the two baziche halavoina. That's the end of the carbonated. It gives us the measurements. The same Meir shulchan arku yud beis tvachim. Shul was 12 tvachim long. V'rach b'shishan 6 tvachim wide. Lechaponim were arkan asara. They were 10 tvachim long. V'rach chamisha and 5 tvachim wide. Notice in arka kneg rach v'shulchan put the length of the length of the lechpanik corresponding to the width of the shulchan. Kofel tivchaim, you count tivchaim, and you bend them up, but tivchaim on both sides because the lechpanik were bent. So nishtar, without going to the precise meters, I'm trusting the Quran. This nishtar revach be'emtza sham. There was going to be a gap in the middle. The Rabbi Emsa Shomli Nasa Bezichim. There they put the Bezichim. Al Besomach Mashma. Al means adjacent, not necessarily literally on top of. Okay, but let's get back to RoshOkrav. Says Gemara, Toch Ubar, Divi Rabbi Tarfon. Says Gemara, Pesach Haya Korei Toch Ubar. The Pesach was called inside and outside. So you know steam crumb they put the intestines and the legs partially inside, partially outside. The blood should flow out. And also, the added benefit is that the roasting was not, there was no buffer. The roasting was actually directly affecting parts of the legs and parts of the intestines, and then that roasting would spread to the totality of the legs and the intestines, including what was inside. Rabbi Yishmael Makulas. Makulas means everything was inside. Everything was inside. As the Korban says, Makulas, Kovan Achoshes, a copper helmet. It was all covered as if it was in this copper helmet, totally inside. Now the article changes the sheet that's around. We're going to go with it like it is in front of us. There's the Korban and Reb Chaim learned as well. I think also the Moshe doesn't change it either. So Asid Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yosef Lili. The Rabbi Tarfon is going like Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva, our Mishnah said it's completely outside next to it, but evidently Tochu Bar is also means that doesn't all can be adjacent, not necessarily completely as encased as possible, so to speak. So therefore, it's Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon Shitas go together. Rabbi Shmuel goes up basically. Rabbi Shmuel says Makulas means completely enveloped, right, like inside this helmet. So that's it's close, completely enveloped. The Tani, Rabbi Yosef Omer, this Rabbi Yosef says, Ezu Kedim Makulas. What is the Kedim Makulas? Which is the way Korban Pesach is supposed to be roasted. Kulo tzli, completely roasted. Rosh al Krav al Kirbo. Its head like a capping over Krav Kirboch completely inside, it's Shalach Miktas. It seems like this is like a new issue here, going on to something new here. And in fact, Reb Chaim says the new thing starts with the Tani. And we don't think the Tani is a raya because we know Rabbi Yisrael really holds what he holds from our Mishnah. Okay, this is a new thing. Okay, so it shouldn't be Ditani, it should be actually, I guess, Tani, although he doesn't change the Girsa. But So the Tani is a new thing. The Tani should be Tani. If whether it's Tani or not is a new thing. So let's go back and read like Reb Chaim. Tani Rabbi Yossi Agli Omer Eza Gdim Mekulas. What is a Gdim Mekulas? Kulo Tzli Al Rosho Al Kirav Al Kirbo. It's completely roasted. Head on top. I guess you do put the base of shchita, like fold the head back on the base of shchita, on the legs and on the intestines. Shag miktas or misha miktas. If you cook a little bit, cook shalagav, it's very heavy form of cooking. But bisha miktas, which is a less form of cooking, and a gdim makulas. That's not gdim makulas. Totality in one unit roasted. Okay, so the machnising gdim makulas by yontav mishalchav uv yontav achron shel pesach. So the you bring in a gdim makulas on the first night of yontav and on the last day of Pesach. Now, this is not talking about a Korban Pesach. This is talking about gdim makulas b'zman hazeh. He says that machnisik gdim makulas yontav rishon shel chag. I wanted to note that, and I glossed over that. I'm not sure I read it. Let's go back to the tape and see. But on first night of Sukkot, you can have Gdim Makulas. Bisman Hazeh, outside the base of Mikdash, no problem. And beyond the Achron Shulchag, and last day of Pesach, also you can have it. Evidently, somebody showed me the Girsa that Rishon Shulchag, even on the emphasis being daytime. Yom Rishon, not the first in the night. So the first night of Sukkot, you can have one. And the first day of Pesach, you can have one. And certainly going to Girsa for us last day of Pesach. The article puts in the word V'leila Yom Achron Pesach. He doesn't put it in the Girsa, but he says the reference is to even the night of the last day of Pesach. Okay, I think that's once you pass the first day, I don't think it makes a difference. But I guess it's more of a chiddush that the night of Shisha Pesach you can have the Gdim Makulas. Magdis the Elam Makulas, and you could eat a roasted calf, but you have to Rishon Shal Pesach, even on the first night of Pesach. Avlo Gdim Makulas, but Gdim Makulas, the first night of Pesach, that no. Tiny we learned. Amar Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi said, "Tudas Ish Romi Nigas Anshe Romi." Tudas Ish Romi conducted the people of Rome. Shayu Ochling Gdim Makulas and the Pesachim that they should eat the roasted sheep, lambs, goats on the night of Pesach. For the first night of Pesach. Shalchem Amulo, the Chalim sent a message, said to him, Ilu Eshat Todus, who are not Todus, which means, of course, you're a great person, then Lo Yinu Minadinos, who will not put you in a Cherem. In other words, you deserve to be an Cherem because you did the went against Chazal's Takana, not to have a Gdim Makulas, and not a Pesach. Now it's interesting to note that Italians retained this custom. Evidently, it was a dispensation they got. In other words, they didn't put it to us in Cherem. They said, okay, since Tudus did it, we're not going to intervene. And I don't know if to this day, because all minhagim change, as people interact with each other in the 20th century. But Italian Jews, at least until recently, had the minhag to eat roast lamb on the night of Pesach, unlike anywhere else in the Klal Yisrael, where the minhag is to eat not just not roast lamb, but also the minhag has become to eat nothing roasted the night of Pesach. So the Roman dispensation stuck. So the Mashbiach says the next statement is a Mamar Musgar. It's like a parenthetical mark, and he moves it to it's a parenthetical mark anyway, but he moves it later down in the Gemara. I don't know if you have to change it, put it later on, but it is comment on who Tudus was. Mao Tudus, what is Tudus? No, it's what's so special about him. Chaneh said to have a Mishaleach, it says Mishalah, but the Mashbiach changed it to Mishaleach, and he would send, it even says Mishalah, I guess it means a similar thing. He would somehow maintain Parnasas and Rabbanan. He was very integral. He was the Gvir of the time. that he helped the Chacham in their parnasa, and either sent them money, or according to Korban he sent them schera in order to for them to make a parnasa. But in any event, he was very heavily involved in the tzorchei tzibur of the time, and obviously he was held to be in high esteem. So either we move that statement a little further down, or we are going back now to the original discussion. By having people eat roast lamb outside the Beis Hamikdash, is it not at least as if you're bringing people to eating kachim outside the Beis Hamikdash, outside Yerushalmi in this case? Maybe it's anybody who causes the masses to eat kachim outside Yerushalmi. So there should be put in, neither should be put in cherem. Rabbi Yosef ben Shem says, Zosmas, in this account, we derive, a person can't say to his friend, Hey, here's money, but say, and go buy with them meat for the Pesach. Because then also it seems like you're buying meat for a korban Pesach. Says, and go buy with them for them meat to roast, generically, not mentioning the Pesach. My cousin, the Ofra Yerushalayim, says that the way, and then he says the Gra learns this way, that this is an issue not with the meat so much with the but with the money. You say it's not directly like the previous Gemara. The Rosh had the meat. It's going to be like the meat is being eaten as if it's a korban outside the Beis Hamikdash, but rather that the money is going to have Kedushas Domim as a result of you having designated to buy korban Pesach. Okay, could be either way. Rabbi Ami asked a question. What happens if you scrape out the oven and then you roasted the korban Pesach in the heat of the oven? Is that okay or not okay? So Mora says, Rabbi Yirmiyah said, this is a question called Rabbi Yosef Gli, but Kiva Pshitale. Kiva is Pashit. So the Korban Moshe says, Rabbi Ami, whose question is Rabbi Ami going like? Rabbi Yosef Gli, because there's the Kra, but Dafka, the Kra, he learns the passage specifically like we learned before, the Kra, the Dorish, he learns the passage, the Kra, but Dafka. So she need Bakim Imo. They have to be clinging within it. In Kain, mi boy, lay, dilma, reisha, the Korban Nami, but Dafka. So happens to be in the passage also Dafka. The Ksiv Kin Sli Eish Al Gecholim Batanur. It says it's Sli Eish Al Gecholim on coal in the oven. Tanur below Gecholim. Lav Klitz Eish maker. Perhaps with the oven without coal is not considered Sli Eish. But the Baram Krabi Akiva, the still Gabi how the El the Crow Lav Dafka. He says before the pasuk is Lav Dafka. It's Lav Chutza Lav B'Samach. He would hang the legs and the intestines next to it. Also Nami Akrava Kirbahu. So it's going to be Akira Kirbahu. And Kain Hacha Nami here too. Shitalev Lav Dafka. Sheishem Eish Shasi also. Does not mean that there's fire there specifically at the time of the roasting. And Lafilu Kurafola Eish. You swept out the fire, the coals. It's slow, and you roasted in the empty oven. Latanu nami tzlieshu. That also to be tzlieshu, because after all, the heat of the oven, shchomat tanur, machnatesha yebasocho. The fire, the heat of the oven is on account of the fire which was once there. So now the Gemara is going to get into a little bit of physics. So what it says, I came a question called Rabbi Kiva. I'll give you a marshal for this. In order to explain why it's called Rabbi Kiva. If you have the coals inside the oven, then it's going to be roasted half an hour. If you take the coals outside, right? So it's being cooked in an hour. So half an hour of cooking is not on account of the coals, but on account of the oven. So what happens if it's only the last half hour, it's being cooked on account of the roasted on account of the oven without the eish, and or the totality becoming oven without the eish, it's not getting cooked on account of Eish. We see the Tanu has its own, is cooking independently of the Eish at that point, which is why it takes longer. So Rabbi says, no, you're making a mistake. The oven is not doing, it doesn't help the coals at all. Meaning, again, Yerushalmi Lashon, you have to look at it as the opposite, right? It's the coals are not being helped. Well, it works out this way too. It's not. The oven is not assisting the coals. It's really the coals which are doing the roasting. It only focuses the heat. But the heat, of course, all the source of energy, the source of power, the source of the heat is the coals, whether they're in there or not. So so it focuses the heat and it retains the heat even after the coals are removed. When the coals are still present in the avir tanur, it's roasted in half an hour. When the gecholim are taken out, and then the avir olam, all you're left with is the oven's heat. It's still the residual heat of the coals. It's just that the residual heat of the coals is now diminished. That's why it takes longer. But it's still the heat of the coals. And therefore, according to Kiva, he's saying, in fact, there not be a question. Because, I guess we're going to say it's not a question because, again, it's not a separate cooking because of the oven separately from the coals. Or rather, it's residual heat of the coals. And therefore, according to Rabbi Kiva, who holds you don't need krokid yachsiv literally, it would be perfectly fine. And we're already way up on Omen Alpha, so we'll stop here for today, of course.